Um,
Okay.
okay, I'm excited to have you on, dude. I mean, this is great. It's weird, but we always talk. Like the only difference is we're recording it. I want people to learn about you. This podcast is more business oriented. Like anybody I have on, I want them to be business minded, with a cool background. And dude, you got a cool background. I mean, I know you don't like talking about yourself, but I'm gonna pull it out. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself. I know you have a successful business. Tell us where you're located, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Okay. My name's Brandon Goble. I'm 39 years old. I live here in Abilene, Texas. I own a couple of businesses in the oil and gas, and I branched off into the real estate. Businesses are rolling out in Midland, Odessa, kind of spread all over the place for the oil and gas, but the real estate is actually all over the place as well, down in South Texas, DFW, majority of it. Um, yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Well, so tell everybody, how did you get going? Because I know you have an interesting backstory, but if you can tell us, like, what didn't you do a prior job that led you to your own business? Like, explain how things got rolling for you.
Yeah, so I'll kind of start from the beginning. I went to school to be a football coach. Ended up having my son at an early age. I knew that I needed to get to work, make some money. My first job was in the oil and gas, doing the same thing that I'm doing right now at one of my businesses. And so that was back in 2006. I started with a company doing inspections on pipelines and stuff like that. Started as a grunt, worked my way up, learned it. Um, Ended up moving around a little bit and moving up within another company.
What year was
Um,
that? What year was that?
that that was in 2012. I moved down to South Texas. Me and my son did.
Okay.
I was learning it. I ended up taking another job, being a company man. I was still in the same industry, but I got I guess you can call it a promotion. I got a company man job. So it's on the same projects. I was just at a higher ranking.
Hmm.
So at that point, I started learning that side of things. And that's whenever I started buckling down and starting saving my money because I knew I didn't want to continue traveling on the road with a, 2-year-old boy.
Yeah. And so that was before you were married, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So tell everybody your living situation. So when you moved down there to get that going, yeah,
Yep.
what was it like? Like, how was it family like, life like?
So, man, I mean, it was, looking back, it was pretty rough, but I mean, I lived in a travel trailer, man. I had a 2-year-old little boy. I was trying to, you know, handle, learning how to be a dad at a young age. I was 23 years old. Well, I was probably 24 at that time. Um, I had a daycare that would watch him while I was at work. My parents played a huge role in helping me and stuff on the weekends and all that. But that was my living conditions were. I mean, at that time, I felt like it was manageable, but looking back, it was like, man, it was tough. It was tough to work a job 6 days a week and then be dad as soon as I got home and, being young at the same time.
What were the hours like? So, like during the start of the week or like 6 a.m.? What was it like?
So I had a daycare. This lady owned a daycare down the street from my RV park. And man, she did me a favor and she opened up like 45 minutes earlier than normal hours. So I would drop him off at like 5:45 and I would get home, usually around 5:36, but there were some late nights, that's, in my industry, it's you don't really have a set schedule, it's a service business, so you have to be there for the customer and so the hours were kind of sporadic.
Yeah. And so, how long did that last for? That was about 2012, right?
Yeah, that was around 2012. That's whenever, me and my wife started dating. Or shortly after that, me and my wife started dating, and she started coming down from Dallas, started driving down, and we were dating and stuff. And I'll drop my son off with my parents, and I was getting to meet her slowly but surely, and that's when I come to terms with, man, this could bridge the gap here. She's a good person. I trust her, which is huge in my life, trusting somebody, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so she really played a huge role in all this success as well.
Right. Like stability, right? Like that for
Yes.
me, like I never had that. So it's interesting. Somebody, woman comes down, stabilizes you a little bit. And then, so what happened is that was 2012. She would come down and visit you. And then for your job, was there a bridge or a crossing point where you were doing what you're doing down there and then you started your own business?
No, so what ended up happening is me and Lindsay continued dating. We ended up moving in together. I got a rent house down in San Antonio, and she started, helping me out tremendously with my son, with helping me stay. It honestly helped me get stable, to where I could start focusing on the starting a business one day. So you know, as I mentioned, I got the promotion to be a third party inspector for these gas companies, and so when a project ends, you have to go where the work's at. So I essentially started traveling um, the United States at that point, and we bought our first house in 2013 in Abilene, which is where my family's at, and the reason why I picked Abilene is because, like I said, it helped me. My parents played a huge part in helping, me with my son Eli and helping Lindsay. So we ended up buying a house here, and I continued to travel in my camper all over the United States. But I knew that I had to do something different if I wanted to be a father at home and a husband at home. So I saved my money and I started my business with my own cash. And we started in 2017 and it took about a year. So in 2018, I was officially home. It paid off. I didn't have to tuck my family over in at night over the phone.
So what was that like that first year? What was that like? Like, so you put in your notice to quit your other job, I'm guessing, right? And then what was
Yeah.
that transition like? Do you remember?
Yeah, definitely, man. So I remember I had an engineer that I worked for out in West Texas, and I knew that when the time was right because I noticed that I was trying to juggle my day job and run a business, and I felt my integrity slipping with my day job. And I had at that point I had to give my notice, and I'm so glad I did because that door is still open today.
Yeah, that's so cool. So you didn't burn a bridge there.
That's correct.
That's great. So you have a business partner, correct?
Yes, I have a
So
business partner. He lives in the Metroplex.
how did that get started with him?
So me and my business partner met back in 2006. We worked for the exact same company where we both began our first jobs in this industry. And we ended up circling back around and on in the same boat. He was on the road as a consultant just like I was, and we both had a common goal, and that was to start a business and get home and, be a normal dad and husband.
Yeah, that's great, man. I love that. So, what was the family like around that time? So, when you started the business, did things instantly get better? Like, did you move like from Abilene? What happened from Abilene?
So when I moved back home, I drug my camper back, and man, yeah, I felt like things got really. Man, I felt like it was a very exciting time for sure because it just, I was used to always being on the road. My family was always used to seeing me leave. So, I mean, yes, things did get better, but I also kept my guard up for a long time because in the back of my mind, I was, petrified of something going wrong and me having to go back on the road. So I constantly was working around the clock at home.
Yeah, and you're very disciplined with your money, right?
Absolutely, man. My dad taught me at an early age, nobody plans for a transmission to go out. And so that is what I've always kept in my mind, like always plan for the worst because from time to time it does happen.
Yeah. So, yeah, I have some similar experiences. Just starting a business is completely different from what you did, but when I was in my transition, I was at AT&T for a while. Before I started my business, I hated AT&T. I felt like it was a prison. Even though it's a great company, it's really good benefits. But every time I went into work, even though I was good at it, like I'm real good with people, so I was good at it and I was making money, but I didn't truly have that passion. And once you start doing something you're passionate about and really good at, and then you try to do something you're not passionate at, it's not just about the money, man. And on my side of the story, working for AT&T, it took me about a year, and I met some good people. But during that time, I had to sell DirecTV. I had to, people come in to work on my, like, have me help them with their phone, and I had to switch it into a sale. Now with AT&T, it's a sales business too. They want new customers. They want to sell their products. So I get it. But when you're not passionate about that, and even though you're good with people, you tend to hate going into work. And that's one thing I always said I didn't want to do. I didn't want to wake up every day and hate what I do. But I met some good people, and I was good at what I did. So during the meetings, I was real cool with the boss. I knew the boss. The boss actually helped me get a job. And what's great is I'm one of those people. I come into work and I want to make the most of my day. And those coworkers, I don't know if you have these experiences when you had a day job, but when you get in there and you make friends with the boss, people are going to look at you and judge you. And I had a lot of that. And because I was selling all the time, the boss was always praising me at meetings. And then I had a bunch of coworkers that, looked at me as like he's the brown noser. He's a suck up. And I didn't care, because at the end of the day, I want to go in there and have a good time. I want to talk to the boss and get myself hyped. I want to make my money and I want to get out of there. And whoever's a friend with me, that's fine. But then you have those other coworkers that are probably still there today, and I love them, but that's what they want to do. And I didn't want to do that. And so, I had guys there that, were jealous, which I look at it and I'm like, you shouldn't be jealous. Like, I want everybody to be good. I want people to be better than me. But when somebody thinks that you're doing something that they should be able to do that they can't do, you get that jealousy. And so I had that a lot at AT&T. But I met some good people, and a couple of my friends from AT&T, I'm still with them today. I still keep in contact with them. And but it took me about a year or 2 years, and then finally, I remember I got an award for selling so much. I think there was a leaderboard in the store, and it was like, if you sell the most amount in a month, you get a plaque on this board. And it's there to motivate you. It's there to motivate everybody in the store to sell as much as you can. And I got number one for 1 month, and everybody was congratulating me. And then I got number one for 2 months in a row. And everybody's like, hey, dude, good job. And then 3 months in a row. And then people started to hate me. So
Yeah.
once it was at 3 months in a row, like, I'm competitive, right? So I don't care what everybody thinks. I'm going to keep making money and getting trying to get at the top. I went all the way, dude, to 9 months in a row. Dude, people hated me, bro. They retired that board. And of course I'm proud, but at the same time, I get it. I get it, man. Like, we're humans. Like, you're not going to I'm not comparing myself to the Patriots, but in that sense, like, if there's someone always winning, you're gonna have some haters, bro. Like,
for sure, man.
So, after seeing all that and just being around that, I knew I had to work for myself. So, I remember I had this. It was May 2017, and I had sold so much one month, they send all the top reps of a few different stores in the area to the Four Seasons in Irving. And so I either go there and get paid for a day of work, and it's kind of, it's like a reward, or I just decline to go and just work. And so, of course, I'm going to go. But I was so bored, bro. Like, I went and sat there. I didn't want to be there. Like, I was by myself, and I'm like, in that sense, I remember making a commitment to myself. I'm like, I'm going to start my own business. This is not, I'm at like, I'm getting to the top of where my position now, and I'm not happy. So I had to start my own business. And I think that's where you can relate. Like, you worked for somebody else and you figured out you can do it on your own, your own business and be happier, you know? And, it's just that transition. I remember just sitting there, it was a spa day and, I could have played golf. I got a massage. I chilled by the pool and I decided right then and there, I'm like, I want to do this for somebody else. I don't want to be the one getting this. I want to be able to be the business that can do it for, a coworker. So I made the commitment 6 months down the line. I had to start my own business, like 100%. So I wasn't going to be
Yeah.
part time or anything. And I did. And I struggled, the first couple of years of my training. I made a commitment with another gym and started training people out of the gym. I hired a couple of trainers, grew it from there, and now I own my own gym and train out of it. But it just like you did, it took risk and sacrifice. And I didn't have the exact same situation you did, but I always admired how you went down, lived in a trailer to build where you are now. So that's where, we're at now. And I want you to tell everybody about it. Where is your business at today?
So, you know, I've been up and running since 2017, and I'm referring to my biggest business, the one that we've been talking about. And
Sure.
man, it has grown so much. It's gone through struggles, it's gone through wins. I mean, it's life. I mean, it's gonna do that. But it has provided, the life that me and my family have today, and I'm so thankful for it and grateful. Man, there's things that I have to include in the success that's gotten me here, and God is a huge part. And I think fitness is another. You can't um party during the week and stay in good shape. You can't run a business very long by partying. So that's been my foundation with God, and fitness has been a huge, huge part of my success in keeping this business running and afloat. But man, it's doing really good. It's doing very good. Like I said, I've learned so much through business, not only about money, but about, relationships, how to deal with struggles, and realizing that struggles are um sharpening you, making you stronger, making you a better business person.
No, I love that. Now, just with that business being so big, what would you say the hardest part of your day to day operations is, the most challenging part?
Mm, I would say there's probably a couple of things, but to narrow a couple down, I would think um I have to be readily available on the phone because, working from home, my kids and my wife, they realize that I have to work, but I'm at home too. So that's a tough task, is working from home. From the outside looking in, it probably seems like, oh, that's easy, but that's a task in itself, and to operate at a high level and be at home. So I would say that would have to be the toughest one. I have to always, um, be available when the phone rings. I answer. I'm very good at communicating. I try to make that, a staple in my business, and that's where the customers and myself have built a good relationship. They know they can count on me, and then of course that has to align with competitive rates.
Yeah. I've always looked at you as one of my buddies that were really successful at a young age. And of course, we all have room for improvement. But when it comes financially, family life, everything, you've been successful. So let me ask you this, with where you're at now, what's been some of the biggest struggles being on the top? Because you can say that you're on the top, right? When you have nice things, you have nice family, stability. But what are some big challenges of being up there?
Man, I feel like, the old saying goes, more money, more problems. I feel like that's 110% the case. You have numerous things that are thrown at you whenever you are dealing with volumes of money and business. I feel like that. it's easier to slip and not do the right thing whenever you are on top. So I think in order to, keep things going the way they're going is you have to be more disciplined, more money, more discipline.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about, do you think your childhood helped shape your business mind? Like, because you're so business driven, disciplined, do you have anything from childhood that you think helped get you to where you are?
I do, man. I really do. My parents were had me at a very young age. Like they were young. They were kids trying to figure out their own life and raise me at the same time. So, I feel like I grew up in a pretty hostile environment. They were kids, so I can't blame them. They're great people. Um, but I feel like some of the things that I dealt with in my childhood, I feel like it molded me to be, to have ingrained like if you want something, you're going to have to go and get it yourself. And I was one that never wanted to go without stuff. And so therefore, I feel like that played a huge role as well, man. I mean, it definitely did.
Do you have any childhood stories that pop up in your head?
Um, Trying to think here, man. I don't know. I don't know really a story, but I can say that like my dad, he was the tough one. He was the one that you didn't want to mess with. He was the one that, like my mom was laid back, and I'm glad I had both worlds now looking back because man, if I messed up, I had consequences, and it wasn't a normal discipline. It was, man, you're fixing to get it. So I'm appreciative now that I'm a grown man, and I realize growing up scared of something is important.
Yeah, and it kind of it pushed you to be an adult a lot quicker, probably. But
Oh, for sure.
that's a lot of business guys now. Like we're I would say driven to only rely on ourselves, right? Like we have to do it, we have to get it. And where
Yep.
other people, they if they had less craziness in their childhood, probably not as pushed to be chaotic, right? Because being a
Hmm.
businessman, it's chaos, man. I know your world is chaos. At any time I call you, you got 50 things going on. Whether it's the your employees and dealing with all that and trying to grow your business. It's every day. It's not the same, right?
That's correct, man.
Yeah, and I can share, from my childhood, we grew up in a dysfunctional family. My mom was, trying to get it in life, and she could never get it. And grandma would always, help out here and there. But looking back now, I know my mom has been, mentally ill. She's not, she's still functional, but she can't take care of herself. And then she had 5 kids. And so when you have 5 kids, you can't take care of your kids, if she can't take care of herself, let alone the 5 kids that she has. So grandma's always helped, but I can remember, my business mind today, I know has been driven by my childhood. I can remember my mom just living with her in a rent house, and it was, I believe, my 2 sisters, and we lived here in Denton. And at the time, I was probably like 12, and I didn't know what my mom was going through, but I know she had went out one night, and she had a roommate, and there was one guy and a girl. There's a black girl, white guy, and then they rented out a room from us, and they had 2 dogs. And I don't know much about them other than I remember hearing the sounds of them beating their dogs. Just, it
Mm.
was all them in one room, and they would always just beat their dogs, like just smack them, and you can hear the dogs yell. And that's traumatizing. But that's what we had to deal with. My mom bringing people in the house like that just to try to rent out a room, make money. But I remember my mom went out one night, and it was like 12 o'clock. We're all in bed, and those people were in the room. And she came home, and now in hindsight, looking back, she was probably partying. And
Hmm.
she came home, and she was probably intoxicated or something. She came home and just started yelling at him. Went in the room, kicked him out of the house, just yelling at the top of her lungs, like, "Get the fuck out of the house!" And as a kid, I'm laying in bed, and I'm like, you don't know what to think. you
Hmm.
know? And it was stuff like that just forcing me to be older instead of enjoying a childhood,
Yeah.
that I think just my mind has to be chaotic every day. And what fits that? A business. So I'm very happy, and I love my mom. But you know, if I didn't have the growing up that I did, it wouldn't be who I am today. So I look back at it, and I'm not mad, but I'm trying to learn like why I do the things that I do, and it's stories like that. Um, and just moving from school to school. I don't know how your schooling was, but trying to make new friends. We were at McNair for the fourth grade, and then fifth grade, I had to move across town because my mom and us lived with my grandma, and my grandma was watching us all the time while my mom went out. And then one time, my mom tried to go out. My grandma confronted her, said, "Hey, I'm not watching your kids tonight. You know, stay home and watch your own kids." And they got in a fight, and it wasn't my grandma fighting; it was my mom fighting my grandma, and it got physical. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I know my mom was being the aggressor, and then my older sister called the cops, and the cops came, and you know, my mom was. I don't even remember. I think she was hiding. My grandma went
Yeah.
back. My grandma went back in the room. Didn't want to deal with it, but the cops pretty much went and arrested my mom. They didn't take her to jail that night, but they said that she would eventually have to turn herself in. And it's family violence, but it was all in front of the kids, you know, and
Yeah.
that's what some of us had to go through. And I'm sure some people have it much worse, man. But that's just one little instance where if somebody can't take care of themselves and they have kids, it will help. It may shape your kids in a negative way. I mean, having your kids watch that. So we had to deal with my mom angry at my grandma pretty much our whole childhood. And, you know, there's a lot of resentment from that because then we had to move schools, make new friends. And so now with my kids, I want stability. I want, you know, my kids to be at the same school if they can, to make friends. And if there's any fighting, because nobody's perfect. If couples are going to fight, but don't do it in front of the kids, you know.
Yeah.
And me and Lauren are
Hmm.
really good about that. First of all, we don't fight that much, and if it is, it's
Yeah.
that healthy human. You know, don't tell me to take out the trash fighting. And we're not
Yeah.
perfect by any means, but we try to be perfect for the kids. And I think we do a good job. Um, so that's probably where you can relate is, you know, your childhood going through a lot of craziness. And then now how does it affect your house? Is it different for
Man,
them?
yeah. So, as we're sitting here talking about it, I'm thinking about like, my natural, gut reaction to things that go on in my family. I feel like, I can feel my parents in me because we're raised a certain way, but I can feel that natural reaction that I'm wanting to react to something that goes on in my family. I feel my mom and dad in me, but it's up to us now do you want to break the cycle? Do you want to carry on the cycle? And
Yeah.
so I feel like I do the best that I can in trying to break the cycle and being more, a better parent than what I was raised. And I'm not hating on my parents, but
Huh.
the goal I think in life is to be better than what you were raised,
Yeah, no matter,
and I
you could have a perfect childhood and you still want to try to learn from it, right? And I think the people that have the perfect childhood, they don't learn as much as we do, man. So it's just,
for
you know,
sure.
your parents didn't know. They don't know. And I'm sure they went through a lot. And my mom went
Hmm.
through a lot. And, you know, we don't really think about, and back then, man, therapy wasn't as big as it is today. And I don't think it
Hmm.
was. And I think everybody should have a therapist. An interesting thing is when you have, like how we look for women, we tend to look for people like our mothers. And that's
Yeah.
probably not true for everybody, but for a lot of men, it's we look for people that are like our moms. So
Hmm.
if you take this, I learned this in therapy, so this is free advice. If you take the two biggest parental figures in your family, so if that's usually a mom and dad, For me, it was my mom and my grandma. And you get a piece of paper and list the best qualities and the worst qualities for each parental figure. And then you go, what's your longest relationship? Is it Lindsay?
Yes.
Lindsay is your longest relationship. You
Mm-hmm.
take your longest relationship in a third box and list all her great qualities and bad qualities, and then you highlight them. They almost always match from your two
Mm-hmm.
parental figures. And so for me, it was my mom and my grandma. So I get a mixture of where my mom has probably a lot of bad qualities. She has some good qualities, okay? She's very
Yeah.
pretty. Um, but the bad qualities, like, she can be selfish. um, she she likes to have a lot of fun, and that can be
Mm-hmm.
kind of good. But I can look at all my relationships and I can see that I look for my mom a lot and a little bit of my grandma in all my
Yeah.
choices in my women. And Lauren is a great balance, and I love it because it took me a long time to find Lauren. But just to kind of talk about some of my relationship history, and I'm going to get to you. Back, I can say in my 20s, when I was the most unstable, and this is right around, I think, the time that you left when we were hanging out. But
Mm-hmm.
I had dated when I was 24, I dated a girl that was 34. And
Mm-hmm.
do you remember that?
Yeah, for sure.
I was dating a 34-year, so she was 10 years older than me, and all my friends made fun of me. It was like, "Oh, you're dating somebody, a MILF, and
Mm-hmm.
she's old." Now I'm like 5 years older than that, but
Yeah.
but I dated her, and it was a good relationship. She had two kids, and
Mm-hmm.
I found myself like living at her house, picking up her kids from school, and it scared the hell out of me. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I ain't ready for this.
Yeah.
So I went from her, and then I remember my next relationship, bro, 18-year-old. So I went from a 34-year-old to an 18-year-old. It was just, and in hindsight, I'm looking at, I rebelled. I rebelled against it. I wasn't ready. I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of in a toxic lifestyle too. So this 18-year-old, this is my craziest relationship, and everybody compared it to Ronnie and Sam back in
Oh
the
yeah.
Jersey Shore days, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not proud of this, but I learned from this. And I definitely don't regret anything. I just learned from it. It
Mm-hmm.
was a part of who I was at the time, and I'm not proud of it, but I'm proud to learn from it because I'll never go back. It reminds me of what could happen if I don't have stability in my life and make the right choices. But
Mm-hmm.
this 18-year-old worked as a door person at a local bar that we'd always go to. And she was
Mm-hmm.
very young and pretty, and her hair was done, tons of makeup. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
And my buddy would always go in there and be like, I'm going to get her number. And so it became a competition where me and him were trying to get her number. And I went
Mm-hmm.
up and I got her number and he didn't. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't serious on my part. And we ended up getting a relationship and hanging out, getting in a relationship. And God bless her heart because she tried. She wanted to sit down. She tried to cook me homemade meals every night. So
Mm-hmm.
she had that relationship in her and was trying to give it to me, but I wasn't ready for that. And that's where I was selfish. Instead of breaking it off, we'd be in and out of a relationship. We'd fight. I'd go party, she'd go party. We'd be mad at each other. I remember she had her mattress at my house. I don't know why. Maybe I needed a
Mm.
mattress, but I
Yeah.
would carry it down the hallway and put it outside because I'm mad at her, and then I don't have a mattress. I don't know why I would do that. It was just
Mm-hmm.
back and forth. She'd break up with me because I didn't come home when I was supposed to, and I was hanging out with girls she didn't like. And I remember this one time, man. It's my craziest relationship. Is this one time we went out with this girl that she did not like, and she knew she was working, so she had to work, and she had broken up with me because I was hanging out with a group of people and she didn't like this one girl. And so she broke up with me, and I'm like, whatever. So I go and hang out with that girl, and then everybody wants to go to the same bar that she works at. And I was dreading it. I'm like, first of all, I shouldn't be hanging out with any other girl. But
Hmm.
it was a big group, and everybody went to the bar she worked at, and so I went, and we're broken up then, but I'm hanging out with this girl too, and I start rebelling against what she was saying, and they kicked me out because me and the girl were like making out in the bar,
Hmm.
okay, which is wrong, but we were, and her bar, which is so wrong. But
Oh.
they kick us out and we leave. And so me and that girl go back home. Okay. And sorry, Lauren, I love you. You're my number one, but this is in the past. Uh, I take the girl home and we're hanging out in the living room. And, it turns into what 20-year-olds do. And we're
Hmm.
clothes came off. It's getting hot. And then, so the clothes came off in the living room. I go to my bedroom and I'm in, boxers. My clothes are in the living room and we're hanging out in the bedroom. And then all of a sudden I hear my garage door open because I had the doors locked. I didn't think she was going to come over. I thought she was going to, go home or whatever. And I hear the
Hmm.
garage door open and I know it's her. And I'm with this girl in my room and I hear the garage door open. She comes in and she's yelling. She comes to my door. And then so it's me and this girl in my room. And our clothes are in the living room. And so
Hmm.
we're in a, so I'm holding the door closed and I had tile flooring in my room and I had my socks on, my boxers on, and she would ram into the door, and every time she ran into the door I would slide back about a foot and then close
Yeah.
the door and slide back and then finally she gave up and started crying and she went in the living room and I was hoping she would leave. She didn't. So that girl had to borrow some of my old clothes that were back in somewhere, and so that
Hmm.
girl put on my clothes and she uh, I should have walked her out, but I was just in my room like, oh my gosh. And that girl walks out into the living room and I can just hear them get into a fight. And so I
Hmm.
guess my ex-girlfriend at the time started fighting with her in the living room, and then I run out there in my boxers and I get them separated, and the girl that I was with had beat up my ex-girlfriend, and it's all because of me. So
Hmm.
that was just something, a crazy story. The girl, my ex-girlfriend, then wanted to get back with me, which is ridiculous. But that was a toxic relationship that I got
Hmm.
into from, and I'm not blaming it on my mom, but I look for a lot of bad qualities in a relationship, and a lot of it has to do with our parents, man.
Yeah.
And that was a relationship that should have never happened, and I should have never. I rebelled against a great relationship and went into this toxic one. And she had a lot of good motherly traits in her, but I brought out the worst, and I learned a lot. But I know you have to go quick. But do you have any crazy relationship stories?
No, man, I mean, just the things that I feel like you hit them right on the head, though, man. I mean, we find ourselves, in our past relationships, growing up and learning. You go through some relationships that are very similar to your childhood and the partying and the same type of, atmosphere. And, I figured out, the long way, that if I was going to be successful and I wanted to be able to raise children and I wanted to wake up early in the morning and feel good and be able to make money and build something, I had to have the right person. And it took a long time to figure out what type of person that was going to be. And when I found it, it stuck. It filled that void and everything started working right then and there. Because if you don't have, a backbone support system, it will be almost impossible for you to achieve those goals and be able to, stay driven and motivated. I mean, I remember there's several relationships that I had, I was chasing the, the excitement, chasing the drinking, chasing the late nights, just chasing that. And I realized real quick, man, I'm showing up late to work. I'm not doing the things that I need to do in order to take the next step. So I had to eliminate that. And I found in Lindsay a big part of my mom as well, like you were saying, like
Mm-hmm.
She's a homebody. She stays at home.
Yep.
She didn't care to get up and go do stuff all the time, keeping me on my feet, wearing me out. She
Dude,
let me,
that's so weird. She reminds me of your mom, like
yeah.
100%.
I mean,
Like,
brown hair, brown eyes. I mean, little petite. I mean,
yep.
for sure.
It's
And I
so
and
crazy.
and my mom and dad are still together today, and that's something that I value too, and that's something that's all I knew. So I didn't know, you know, divorce. I didn't know any of that. So in my mind, you're loyal, you stay married, and and that's where I'm at with my wife and my family today. She's given me a beautiful little girl, and she's helped me raise my son. So it's it's been a very good experience and a very good ride, but it's crazy to think back at all these experiences that we had, man. Like it's scary because as you get older, you do get so much wiser and smarter. Like
Yeah.
if we only knew, that back then. But it's just, part of growth.
And then your son Eli, like he plays football, right? And you're a big
Yep.
faith guy too, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. So like, we go to church every week, every Sunday. I go to a men's group on Wednesday that kind of helps fill the void in the middle of the week. Eli, he was playing sports whenever I was on the road, and I remember Lindsay always at all of his events, and I was on speakerphone with her, and I would always hear him, scoring touchdowns or hitting home runs or that over the phone. That was something that bothered me and it made me sad because you can't get those moments back. And now that I'm home, something that I'm really big at is showing up, being accountable, being there, whether it's practice, whether it's a game. That's something that I'm instilling in my children. Show up. And
Yeah.
yeah, man, I mean, he's a great athlete. He's in all the sports. He's I mean, I feel like he's very, very um, successful at sports, and it's driving him to be a better young man.
I love that. And I know you got to go. Well, one more thing, man. Tell us what was it like when you bought that Lambo? Tell me.
Oh my gosh, man, that's
So,
something. So, so that's something that in the back of my mind that I've always, I'm sure every little boy would think that, man, that is a heck of a car, a heck of an accomplishment. And so once it happened. I was driving back from the dealership in it, and man, and still today it gives me butterflies because that little boy that lived, in that small town that, lived in a trailer house that grew up to, pretty rough life, once I realized that I was able to accomplish that, it's just been surreal. Like it's honestly, it goes back to if you put your mind to something, you can accomplish anything, man.
yeah, and you're not a big, flashy, fancy guy. Like you're frugal, man. You're cheap ass. But you went and you did that because it meant more, right? It was more than just the nice car. It meant it was like a goal, right?
hmm
And
Yeah, it
so,
was just a goal. It wasn't like flashy, hey, look at me. It
yeah.
was, I'll go out to my garage and I'll see it, and it's motivation to continue to stay on top of your game, and you can achieve things like this.
But didn't you tell me you hated the fact that you also did it, and you hate when people see it, right? Tell me
Yeah, I,
how that worked.
yeah. So, I do, feel somewhat guilt in spending that kind of money on something like that because as small as a bad habit and going through the drive-through of getting a coffee every single day.
Mhm.
Like to me, that's like, man, just make coffee at home. That's how I've always been. And so me making that purchase, I had to step outside of my comfort zone and it's I still struggle with why did I do it? Should I have done it? But at the end of the day, man, I do feel like that it was something that made me happy and it was a huge accomplishment. So I feel like that it also it's showing my family, my kids, my friends, like,
Mhm.
man, you can do this. I guarantee you can.
Yeah, and see, it's important to go into it like that when a lot of people are going to instantly be jealous. Like
Yeah.
employees, right? You don't want your employees. So it comes with responsibility when you do something like that. Like you have to manage it. You got to be
hmm
careful with the image from it. But here's the reality, man. You worked your ass off to get that. And it
hmm
was a lifelong goal. And the people that are jealous are mad. Again, they're jealous because they feel like they should have it, but they don't understand
Yeah.
what it took to get that. First off, to actually be able to afford that, to get approved for that, and then to now, be responsible with it. I mean, you have to keep it clean. You got to keep up the maintenance. You got everything. You
Hmm.
got your image online. You got to be careful with not flaunting it too much.
Hmm.
You did not get lucky. You can't. You are the true example, and this is coming from my point of view. Is what hard work does. Hard work and learning. So discipline too, which a lot of people, you can work your ass off, but if you're not disciplined, you're not going to be able to keep anything. So
Right.
it's great, and I just want you to know that I am inspired by you. I don't sit there and be like, God, Brandon has a Lambo. That flashy motherfucker, man. I'm more of like, dude, he just did something, and there was a reason for it. He put his mind down, did not spend his money, saved his money, made the right decisions. Family life is more stable. Dude, you had such a family life before I did. It's inspiring, man. And I just want you to know that people like me look up to you to keep going and doing the right decisions on my side. I don't want a
I appreciate that.
Lambo. I don't want a Lambo, but I want something. I want, whether it's a bigger house or, more stability in my family. Like, you are a good example. So anytime you're doubting yourself, like, dude, you got to keep going. So,
I appreciate that, man, very much.
and I know you got to go. So I appreciate your time, man. We'll do this again. I appreciate you talking about the business. I'm sure somebody out there can pick up some useful tips and tricks that you've done to get to where you are. I love you, brother. And if you have anything else,
Man, I appreciate you having me, man. I'm hoping that if I can help one person, this was worth it. Whether it be with God or be, disciplined or relationships. I mean, all of it plays a huge factor into building something special. So, man, I love you and I appreciate it.
all right, man, you go have fun at church, homie.
All right, buddy. We'll see you.
See you, man. Bye.
Later.